All right, believe it or not, I Know What You Did Last Summer is the best legacy sequel to a horror film that we have gotten to this point. Now, I do state that in terms of the quality of the original film versus the quality of the legacy sequel. But if you don't get what I'm saying there, I am absolutely going to expand on that in tonight's review. Folks, stay tuned because we're talking I Know What You Did Last Summer. Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. I appreciate you tuning in. Like I said, tonight in movie reviews, we are talking I Know What You Did Last Summer. Don't forget, though, to hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button so you can check out all the great horror content I got on my channel, including reviews for the original I Know What You Did Last Summer and its sequel, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. But let's not waste any time and jump right on into things here. If you haven't seen the trailer for I Know What You Did Last Summer before, a new group of friends end up in a tragic accident in their hometown of Southport where a young man is killed. 1 year later, they reunite for a happy occasion only to find that bodies are slowly beginning to pile up and all of them are receiving threats and notes specifically that state, I know what you did last summer. Having nowhere else left to turn, the group of friends go to the original survivors of the Southport massacre back in 1997, Julie James and Ray Bronson, looking for a way to survive the vicious attacks of the fishermen. And there it is, y'all. That is I Know What You Did Last Summer. Now, to immediately hit that, I said that I Know What You Did Last Summer is the best legacy sequel in terms of the quality of the original versus the new sequel that's coming out. And I'm gonna hit y'all with some hard facts right here. I know we love I Know What You Did Last Summer. I know that we love I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. But facts are facts. And those films are not as good as a number of the other slasher films that we were getting around that time. Whether we're talking about Wes Craven's New Nightmare, the Scream franchise, Urban Legend, Valentine, whatever you want to go with, Cherry Falls, in that area, the slashers that we were getting were more fast-paced, they were funnier, they were gorier, they were scarier, and they were moving in the way that culture was moving to where everything had to be in the zeitgeist. Everything had to be about pop culture. The original I Know What You Did Last Summer very much feels like a movie out of time, to where it would have made more sense releasing in the 70s and 80s when whodunits were a really, really big part of the horror slasher genre. And there was a slow build up, less victims in it, better story to it, but maybe less in the way of scares because it's a much more personal story. I enjoy I Know What You Did Last Summer for nostalgic reasons, but I'd be lying to you if I said that I have it in the same boat with something like Scream. Scream just appealed to me much more as I was growing up. There were a lot of things in that franchise, including the characters, that I was just able to latch onto a bit more. Now, of course, I've talked on this show about my enjoyment of the legacy sequels, Scream 5 and Scream 6. We've also talked about legacy sequels like for Halloween and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and a number of other ones as well, too. But again, with all of those franchises, the original film is typically considered to be some kind of masterpiece, or at the very least, just an absolutely amazing film. And I Know What You Did Last Summer doesn't fit that bill. And that means that this new sequel had the biggest chance of covering a lot of ground and turning out to be a truly, truly fantastic movie, and that's really what it is. Now, as for the story, again, the story follows the structure of the original film, but it carries the tone of the sequel. Again, the group of kids are involved in a tragic accident where somebody ends up dead. They end up making a pact to keep that under wraps so that nobody else finds out. Of course, somebody ends up finding out their secret and begins to hunt them down 1 year later. And we get to see, like in that first film, the characters trying to investigate who the victim was, who had ties to this victim as well, who would be very likely to come after them if this person was dead. And they get a number of red herrings like these movies always end up working out. And when things start to get a little bit too serious for them, that's where we see our legacy characters show up. And this is another one of the great strengths here of this film, is that the legacy characters are used in a very natural and smart way. In Ray's case, Ray hasn't left Southport. Him and Julie have been broken up for a while at this point, which I love because it carries on the story that we have been seeing across the previous 2 films. But him and Julie are broken up. He's opened up a bar and he stayed there kind of living under the radar while everything has gone down in those previous 2 films. Southport has worked hard to bury the events of that original massacre, and even though Ray is living proof of everything that went down, and of course there are countless tributes to like Helen Shivers and the Shivers store that her and her sister worked at. You know, Barry gets a little bit of a nod here, even though this film makes it very clear they don't give a shit about Ryan Philippe. And yeah, it very much shows here that Ray didn't really have a way out of Southport. This is something that we saw in those first 2 films. Ray didn't have this loving, rich family like the rest of these characters, so he could go to college or go do something different with his life. He was going to grow up to be his dad, to be a fisherman. Julie, on the other hand, made sure to get the hell out of Dodge after being hunted by the same killer twice. She made a smart decision to just leave Southport and be done with all of that. And she's now working as a college professor. PTSD has been such a big theme here for this series. I love the way it's embraced it. I've talked about it in my review for I Still Know What You Did last summer, that I thought the way that they portrayed Julie was one of the most realistic portrayals of a victim surviving, you know, a slasher film and then going on to try to live a normal life. That no, they're seriously messed up here from this. This still very much rules their life. And we get to see, you know, almost 30 years later at this point, how deep that's affected her even more. And this time, how it affects Ray as well, which I think is so important because Julie is the main character of this franchise for sure. But it's not like other characters, whether it was Helen or Barry or Ray or Carla in the second film, weren't important enough to kind of see how these events have ultimately affected them. So I love that Robinson doesn't forget how central PTSD is to this franchise and very much continues that tone here for this film as well. Now, as for the acting, I think that the leads here, Madeline Klein and Chase Sue Wonders, are a great pair here for a slasher film. They are playing 2 very different ends of the spectrum. So Madeline Klein is surprisingly the comedic relief here in this, and she's damn good at it as well. You would think after seeing Chase Sue Wonders recently in the studio that her character might end up getting more of the jokes and more of the great lines there to make. But no, instead, Madeline Klein does all the heavy lifting, adding the jokes here to this movie. And y'all, she does a great job. She is hilarious, had me cracking up through it the entire time. And even though I don't feel that she got decent enough chase scenes or chances to really show off being scared, like there's one scene she gets to where she's given a little bit, but most of all, that goes to Chase Sue Wonders and like the rest of the cast. And so that balance works out well here because everybody else gets to add in the serious nature. They get to give the Jennifer Love Hewitt of it all to this film. And again, the pairing of Chase Sue Wonders and Madeline Klein, one of the best things here about this movie. I would absolutely watch a few more sequels if the 2 of them are guaranteed to come back. Yeah, they play it very well with those 2. As for the other 2 to be on the lookout for, Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr., along with their characters being the best usage of legacy characters here in one of these sequels, the 2 of them also put in a pair of phenomenal performances with this as well too. You know, there's no irony in it in the least bit. The 2 of them are very clearly happy to be back in these roles, and you do see the progression here of Julie James and Ray Bronson over the decades. You know, there's sometimes when we see actors come back into these roles and it's like you're just playing a part, but it really does feel like we're seeing these 2 characters that a lot of us grew up with be now at this older age, and it's so fucking cool to see the way that they've developed and that they're now back and they're mostly bitter for the events that happened to them. I love that. because it kind of goes in line with what we saw with Laurie in the Halloween films, right? That after everything that went down, she has lived a bitter life living as a survivalist, trying to make sure that her and her family are ready for the day that Michael Myers does return. That's not how Ray and Julie are living their lives at all here, but you see very clearly they're upset about the way that Southport treated the two of them, and just in general about the hard turn that they've had in life. So good, greatest use of legacy characters here with it. Now, when I originally saw this, I came out of the theater thinking that this was I Know What You Did Last Summer for the Scream crowd. But to be honest, this feels more in line with urban legend. In the sense that, kind of like the friend group in Urban Legend, these kids aren't smarter than everybody watching the movie. They're only smarter than the people who are aware of the urban legends. And in this case, the specific urban legend is the tale of the fisherman. It's Julie and Ray's story. The kids end up being smarter than the town of Southport, but they're not smarter than anybody going and watching the film in theaters. I love that because it doesn't dive deep into the meta-ness of Scream, because sometimes the characters in those films can be a lot smarter than we really want them to see. It allows them to still be vulnerable while also still putting up a good fight when the killer's after them. My biggest issues ultimately with it were in the third act. I did not mind the big swings that they took. I am not going to spoil those here. If you've seen it, you know the big swings that we are talking about here with it. I am very happy with the swings they took with this, considering some of the stuff I've talked about here in this review already. But my issue with it was that, again, they were following the structure of that original film with the tone of I Still Know, and I just wish they would have committed to that structure of the original film involving its third act. Like, you can keep all the big stuff that happens. I'm cool with all of that there, but I do feel that keeping the hard structure of that first film in the third act honestly would have given us something incredibly unique, because it is unique for this franchise to embrace the tone that it's brought in here, but it would have been more unique to still be that fish out of water, presenting that story that just doesn't fit in with slashers these days, but still having that tone and that sensibility that modern slashers do. So I wish that Robinson would have been able to go all in on that, but I understand when you're trying to build out this franchise, because this movie very much builds out that we're going to get sequels for sure. And if you're trying to do that, you probably have to keep it to a very strict story points in order for it to work out. So I will acquiesce that to them. But that being said, y'all, again, this movie gave me everything that I could have wanted in the original I Know What You Did Last Summer, and everything I would want as a fan of those original films 30 years later, getting to come back and see a new installment in it. This has me hyped for where this franchise truly can go with it. And those of y'all who were not big fans of that original film, I think this is going to end up being the one that kind of pushes you into the fandom of this franchise. So let me know in the comment section here if I'm crazy about the way that I'm enjoying this. Again, I don't say that lightly, but it's the best legacy sequel we've got into a horror film yet, and I'm excited to see what Robinson has planned for us here in the future. I Know What You Did Last Summer gets a 4 out of 5, folks. So in the comment section, tell me what you thought of it there. Please avoid the direct big spoilers for the moment here, y'all. I will delete those comments if I see them. I want folks to get by at least a week or two here without having that spoiled there for it. It's so much fun without it. But let me know what you're thinking of this one here in the comment section. And of course, get subscribed to my channel through my link tree at linktr.ee/T Scary Movie. If you get subscribed, that's going to give you access to the YouTube page, the video versions of the show, to your favorite podcasting platforms, the audio-only versions of the show, like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can get to my Letterboxd page for my written reviews and movie rankings throughout the year, my TikTok page for short horror content, including movie news, movie premieres, and movie reviews, my Twitch page for horror gaming, and my Fangoria shop page where you can enjoy a 20% discount off anything at the Fangoria shop. Take advantage of this, y'all. Make sure to hit that subscribe and follow button. I have a great physical media unboxing video coming out for y'all here before the week is done. And even though I've been pushing, next week we are finally going to get to The Ritual to Marshmallow, and we are going to be taking a look at episode 2 of Dexter Resurrection. You do not want to miss any of that, y'all. I appreciate you tuning in tonight, but that is going to do it for me. My name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.